Hello everyone and welcome back here at Feeling Terrific. Today I have another special guest. It's Danielle, and I'm very happy that you're here with me today, Danielle, because we will talk about a very important topic, and I think a topic which is was there a long time before us and is there and will be there, hopefully not too much, but it's an interesting one. So thank you, Danielle. So maybe I will make a quick intro about you. And then let's take it with the most, or with the hardest question, right? But before we're going there, a quick intro. So you're currently a talent acquisition partner, also at ServiceNow, right? So as mentioned, we will talk about a very important topic, and we will dig deeper a little bit after we have kind of an overview. But among the topics, we will talk about how you're dealing with prejudice against Black people, and in particular for yourself. And as mentioned, much more. So thank you, Danielle, for your time. I'm really looking forward to an authentic insight. And as mentioned, the hardest question up front, who are you?
Thank you. I feel honoured to be here, Christian. So thank you for having me. Great introduction. So I'm one of the senior talent partners here at ServiceNow. I've been here for about a year and a half now. It's been an awesome journey. Every week is different, crazy busy in different ways. Just very delighted to be here today.
Perfect. So you just mentioned it, right? So you're working in TA, and your whole journey in TA started back in 2010, right? So why did you start there? How come?
So I studied a publishing and media degree at Middlesex University, and halfway through the degree, I decided that I didn't actually want to get a role in the field. So I started to think, well, what can I do? Should I finish the degree? I wasn't allowed to quit, by the way. So parents, of course, they made me, they said you have to get it completed. And I'm glad I did. So coming out of university, I went on to Read, funny enough, which is a UK job site. And I started reading all the different types of roles. And then I stumbled across HR. So I thought, that looks interesting. That's something I can do. I like talking to people and working with people, and it's quite a people focused role. So I kind of stumbled across the HR manager, and I looked at the routes. LinkedIn was relatively new, but it was out there, and started looking at people's career journeys. And say, okay, if I start off as a HR assistant and then work my way up, that could be a very good avenue. And I started looking at salaries as well, of course, and thought, oh, that's a nice career to be in. But then I fell into a stumbling block. So I was up against, when I started applying for these HR roles, I was up against all the graduates that had studied HR, and I had the wrong degree. So I didn't get any opportunities to interview. In fact, I had one interview. And I was told that someone that had studied in the field had picked me to the post, but everything else was rejections before I was even met. So I thought, right, what can I do? And it's always good to network, and we need to do more of this, especially in our younger ages. I was recommended by my mum, funny enough, to speak to someone that owned a recruitment business. And she said to me, oh, why don't you try recruitment? And then you can make your way into HR at a later date. But try a recruitment agency. So I thought, when I look at the recruitment roles online, they had these big OTEs. So they looked like sales roles to me. And I definitely was not a salesperson. Having the phone hung up on me, or sorry, we're not interested, and you're not getting anywhere when you're cold calling businesses, was not really for me. So she said, well, why don't you try a sourcing role? And I said, oh, what's that? And she explained it. I thought, I didn't see that. I didn't realise what the differences were. So I worked for Hayes. That was my first role. And I'd applied for a resourcing consultant, and they already had accounts won with companies. And that was my foot in the door to recruitment. So I had my goal set out to say, I want to be in talent acquisition internally once I've got my my recruitment experience on the agency side. And then eventually I'll flip over to move into a HR management role. That's a funny story if we've got the time, but I've been in TA ever since, and I've gone, actually, I prefer staying in TA than moving over to a HR role, because I love to deliver great news to candidates. I like to see the impact it makes for them and their families when they talk about it. And also, especially when you're working internally, you get to see the people that you've hired and the great things that they deliver. And that just makes me feel so good because I was a part of that selection process to get them here.
I already feel the passion. So that's very great to have someone in TA with such a passion, right? But I'm wondering, when is HR coming then? Or will it come? Or...
It's not. Well, you never know. But I've just really enjoyed the journey in TA. Working at agency gave me a good grounding to be a good headhunter. And I think that was the key for me. And sometimes I probably headhunt a little bit too much still. And we have a great sourcing team here because of that early training. So moving into a direct HR role, I'm not too sure. Maybe. You never know.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Well, we will stay tuned for sure. So you also just mentioned or scratched it a little bit, right? But why are you still in TA?
Well, I'm still in TA. I love partnering with the business. I like to, like I said before, I love to see the people that I've hired in the business and making a change. And especially in the sales environment, you see that they drive, obviously they drive revenue for a business, and you are a part of making that happen. I love learning about business, and by speaking to candidates and recruiting for a range of different roles, you understand how the world works. You understand how businesses work. I've worked in a range of different industries, from oil and gas, at Centrica or energy, to hiring people that dig into the ground in the seabeds to extract oil and on the oil rigs, from the technology side where the Hive where you can turn on your heating from your phone. That was just that one company, and it was so vast. Working for Fiserv and GSK and seeing what they do on the pharmaceutical side, it just gives you so much experience and knowledge, you pretty much can do the job yourself. But the amount of times that you talk to candidates about what they do, you learn from them. So when you are speaking to candidates, you know who's a good one and who has the right experience and who doesn't, because you are speaking to so many in those fields. So you're always learning something new, and that's why I like to stay in TA.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I'm wondering, so you've seen a lot, right? Or you recruited for a lot of different industries.
Yeah.
Would you say this experience enriches your profile or you as a person as of today? Yeah,
absolutely. And being in the tech industry as well is just phenomenal. And I've worked with a lot of tech companies as well, like Fiserv and Dell, and also ServiceNow and in Sono. And you can just see how the world is changing with technology. So it really does enriches your experience and where the world is going.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting. So let's see how long you will, be also as a recruiter in the tech industry. Yeah. Maybe let's come to a different topic, right? So intrinsic motivation. What does intrinsic motivation mean to you?
So intrinsic motivation means for me is a natural motivation. So what is getting up and go? Is get up and go. Having a goal for something and working towards that in steps. And if anyone knows me personally, they know if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So it is really breaking it down into steps and working towards that. And there are, unfortunately, a lot of people that I hear and, I hear them say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I just don't see them putting it into plan. So I always say, when? When are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? Let's break it down, even if it takes 5 years. And I knew at the start of my career that I wanted to be in the HR in the HR function internally. I started off in an agency. I worked my way up the ranks, and it took me a good number of years. And then I flipped over as I wanted to into TA, and then made the decision to stay. So just being motivated is having whatever it is to get up and go and grab it. That's what it's doing.
So would I be right then, or would you say something else or differently, that it also has something to do with dedication?
Absolutely, yeah. It is to be dedicated to whatever you want to do and sticking to that plan. Sometimes it can deviate naturally, that's fine, but having that end goal and working towards it. But you have to be motivated. You have to be dedicated to what you're doing. Sometimes you will have obstacles, and there are times when, if we're talking about jobs, for instance, where you're not getting, the opportunity to do exactly what you want. That doesn't mean that you quit. That means you think of sideways steps. You have your plan A, your plan B, your plan C, and sometimes plan D. And my goal was to, move into HR. I didn't necessarily, I didn't study a HR degree, but I found my route to be within the HR function by being dedicated and using that sideways step, and by networking. Speaking to people is so invaluable because you just don't know what little gems may be dropped that will benefit you. Yeah,
that's very interesting, and I think a very good shout out to network, right? Especially when you're younger. I'm wondering, right? So you mentioned that you started. Or when you started to think about your goal, right? And congrats that you found your way, right? And you just mentioned it's all about motivation and dedication and so on, right? I'm wondering, was there also a time during that journey of yours where you had some doubts, or where you had like a situation or moment when you thought, I don't know where else to go? How did you turn that around when there was less motivation and less dedication? How was it for you coming up again?
If I've understood the question correctly, I've always known where I wanted to go, so I didn't have any kind of doubt. But if we're talking about should I be here, and that feeling of imposter syndrome, definitely. But I've always had my vision to be where I am today, and I've surpassed that as well. And when you get to where you want to be, then you have a new drive to get somewhere else. So do I feel like sometimes I should be here? Sometimes you do feel that imposter syndrome, and I think a lot of people experience that at times.
Yeah. No, I can say it also for myself, right? I overthink too much from time to time, so that's definitely not healthy. But that's another topic. But how did intrinsic motivation shape you, especially guide you during your life, personally and professionally?
So personally, it's allowed me to do a lot of things at a young age. So I've been able to buy 2 properties. And do investments as well, quite early on, through just being determined, just being really determined to achieve a goal. Professionally, the same. I've wanted to be a senior TA partner in a large business, and I've worked for a lot of big names, which is a success, a really big success for me. So it's the determination and making those choices. When you're interviewing, sometimes I've been in the position where I've had 2 offers at the same time, and I'm thinking, which company is going to serve me better from a culture standpoint, and also professionally? Who is going to accept me for my authentic self, where I can actually succeed?
That's a very interesting point of view. Which company serves me better from a cultural perspective? Who accepts me as a person? That's a very good one.
That's why I'm here at ServiceNow.
That's perfect. And maybe let's have a different perspective now, right? Let's have a focus on attitude. What role does attitude in dealing with prejudices play?
Mm-hmm. What does attitude play in with prejudices?
Yes, for example, when you're confronted with biases, for example, right, or prejudices, what kind of role does attitude play, right? For example, you could deal with it like, not again, I'm gonna ignore it, right? Or something like, why is he or she saying that, right? And going into a confront mode. So there.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really faced. Well, I don't feel like I've faced much prejudice. Really, but when I have felt it when I'm recruiting, and if I'm trying to, increase diversity numbers across all different ethnic groups, sometimes in my early career, especially with names, I have felt that a lot. So there were times where I just wanted to take a name off a CV because I wanted to make sure that they weren't being, candidates weren't being prejudiced against, if that's the right way of saying it, based on their name before they have even been seen. So I've seen that. And what I do is I just have that conversation. The main thing for me professionally is building a relationship with the person that I'm working with. So it's not about color. It's not about what gender you are. It's about who am I as a person, and who are you as a person, and building that bond with them, and knowing who you're working with. So generally, before when I have a new manager, I really just want to understand who they are, and I'm observing their behaviors, and then I find a way to work with you. So if I know I can't go in and say, right, we need to have a diverse candidate in your team, and I can already sense that I'm probably going to get what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to get a stern, objection to that. Then I will do it in a very subtle way, and I'll move around depending on who I'm working with. Luckily, I don't face that. ServiceNow, diversity is such a big thing for everyone. Managers are asking for candidates that are diverse, and sometimes I can't find enough people for a particular niche role that we're looking for. So, but throughout my career, I have faced and seen that when recruiting, and it's just getting on their level and knowing what fires to fight sometimes as well, in order to navigate around that. If it's blatant and in your face, then it is managing upwards and having those discussions above to say that we probably need some training in this area on unconscious bias. And often I have done that previously where I've flagged certain names upwards, so HR can have those conversations.
Yeah. What would you say then? How important is the role of a recruiter in regards to dealing with biases, not just when it comes to hiring, right? But also when it comes to the culture of a company?
A recruiter plays a critical role, and it really is. Sometimes it's tough. It's building that relationship with a manager that you can have some really challenging conversations at times, but you are also responsible for putting candidates in front of a hiring manager. So you can heavily influence, the people that are in front of a hiring manager and providing that diverse pool. I know there's challenges sometimes finding a diverse pool with certain roles, depending on location and things like that. The role of a recruiter is significant in that part, in that role, and that what comes into that is their business partnering skills and how influential they are, the research that they do with the manager about their team, and understanding what the manager's goal is to change, because you have the company's objectives, but also managers. You also need to know what the manager's objectives are as well to make sure they hit the goals of what the company is trying to do.
Yeah. So it sounds that the job as a recruiter or of a recruiter can be also like doesn't have to, but can be also like change manager in some extent.
Yes, absolutely. We're everything. We do absolutely everything. So yes, we're changing, and the best success stories is when you have really changed the perception of a hiring manager. And I think a lot of people, we all have unconscious bias, but it's always being aware of it. And do we know that we have it? And some, I've had managers when I've seen certain things, not in ServiceNow, where I've gone, oh, have you thought about, and they felt very defensive about me asking the question. And they've instantly said, oh, do you think I'm a racist? And I said, absolutely not. But it's just thinking differently based on the selections that you make from the people that I've provided for you. I'm seeing the same selections, or certain referrals are always getting through. So how do we look at it differently? And you can say it as softly as you can, but it can really offend. But from a tier perspective, that's our role. Our role is really to make change in the business where there needs to be, whether it's more females, whether it's more Black people, whether it's more Asian people, women in leadership roles, accessibility, pride, all of those different things, different groups, need everyone needs to be treated fairly. So when you look at a company structure and you see maybe one gender right at the top, then we need to have those conversations.
Yeah. No.
To have them, because sometimes it's not easy.
No, I'm. Thank you for sharing your thoughts regarding this. I'm curious. Did you have a time or situation where you self-reflected and you were becoming aware of your own, unconscious bias?
When I'm hiring, no. I don't see myself having unconscious bias when I'm recruiting, because being from an ethnic minority group, I know what that feels like. So I make sure that regardless of what group you belong to, that I'm seeing you as a person. And I think I have that type of, I think like that because I'm a part of that minority. So there isn't a time where I've self-reflected and have thought, have I, due to unconscious bias, have I not done something for a candidate? No, unfortunately. Yeah. Fortunately.
Yeah. Maybe let's go to the next topic or main topic, right? So biases. When it comes to encounter biases, right? I think you also already mentioned that there's no kind of general way with dealing it. Everyone is different. Everyone is having a different background. So how people are dealing with such situations is different, right? But how do you feel when you encounter it in the way it doesn't matter?
And I haven't felt it too much, but and sometimes you can feel something, or and sometimes it's not necessarily about your race. It's because, I don't know, a process that you're trying to implement that's coming from further up. A manager might not like that, so they're reacting to it. They're not reacting to you. So sometimes you do question yourself: was that because a person doesn't like me for me, or is it a conscious bias because of who I am, or is it really, would they have treated me differently if I wasn't from an ethnic minority group? So sometimes you can constantly, and I do that, is over question, was that because of something, or was it not? So I try to push those feelings to aside and have to remain professional when I encounter any kind of feelings, because you never know if it is or it isn't, because it can be so subtle. Unless you have something directly racist or against you in a certain way, you can't always know unless it's extremely clear. So it's just being professional and really trying to understand why someone is annoyed or frustrated about a certain about something that you're trying to do every time you speak to them. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. So there's no answer to any question pre-provided, so it's your answer, right? So thank you for that. When it comes to biases, right? So would you say you react differently to bias today as, for example, a few years ago?
Do I react differently? I'm probably more mature about it. I did actually remember one thing. So, because I couldn't remember, it was a very, very long time ago. Have I experienced bias that I felt? Yes, was. So my maiden name was Danielle Atkins. And before the explosion of LinkedIn and, and everything like that, it was just all CV. So you would have your name, Danielle Atkins would be on my CV. And a lot of people, when I spoke to them on the phone, they wouldn't necessarily know what ethnic group I belonged to, if I did or I didn't. And I remember getting a role, quite an important role. So I had to be, in a very senior meeting, and I was probably I won't say my age because I don't want anyone to guess the company. And I walked in and I had to represent a certain business area. And as I walked in, it was full of the room was full of white men. And instantly, when I walked in, it was, are you in the right room? Because not only was I younger, I'm also black. So it did that feeling, because they knew that a female was coming, but they saw my name as Danielle Atkins and they didn't put that name with a black person. And even though it wasn't said, I felt it. And I had to really build relationships with each and every one of them. And after a couple of weeks or several months, it was quite a nice, relaxed meeting. Everyone knew who I was, and it went past what I looked like to the work that I can actually deliver. And I had a foot at the table. Names are very can cause some feelings with unconscious bias, and you can see it and feel it in that respect.
Yeah.
Answer the previous question.
Oh, good. No, in that example, right? What impact did this feeling you had as a result of the views and looks, right, to your performance in this meeting?
So it was nerve-wracking, but I knew I worked hard to be here, harder than you're always told. You need to work 10 times harder. So I worked very hard to be here, and I had responsibilities. I had a child. I'm going to build these relationships, and I'm going to earn my right to be here and to be heard in this meeting every week, this weekly meeting. And that's what I did. So even though inside I had butterflies, I was nervous, I never showed it. I turned up and I delivered, and the feedback that was passed to the management team was phenomenal. So you will always feel these feelings inside, but I just don't let it show.
Now, isn't it interesting even small or big, right? But what even small things can have impact-wise on you.
Yes, absolutely. And it does. And it grows, when you, and that's probably maybe why I haven't noticed certain things, because I know that I earn the right to be here. And you do feel that imposter syndrome at times as well. But I know I've worked very hard, very hard to be here. So even if I have those flutter feelings, I'm not going to let it show. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm delivering to the best of my ability.
Yeah. What do you think about people who still hold on their biases or prejudices?
I think it's an education piece. It's probably the environment that they've grown up in. I think there's a range of reasons. Sometimes they just don't understand other cultures. Sometimes it's there's so many different answers to that. So it's how. Just trying to word the. Say the question again, just one more time.
All good. What do you think about people who still hold on to their biases or prejudices?
If they're aware of their biases and they still hold on to it, then that is a character thing, and not sure what you can do about that. As long as if it is happening in the workplace, then it is for people around to flag it. I definitely say flag it, because you have to understand the culture and the culture of your business and what your CEO and wider management are trying to achieve. And if you're finding in TA that someone's biases are getting in the way of progression in 2023, then it needs to be tackled.
Yeah. Do you have an example where you self-reflected and realized that you dealt with biases differently?
I think, and again, it goes back to whether when certain situations happen, is it because they're being biased, or is there another reason behind it? So oftentimes, I've had conversations with my manager before, and oftentimes I can delay raising a potential issue because I'm really trying to get under the skin of why someone is behaving or having the bias they have. Am I seeing it as a bias, or is there another reason? Was there a better candidate, or what is it? So it does take me a while to really, I'm not an escalator. I hate escalating, and I like to resolve any kind of issues and ask questions before I do so, before you do so, because anytime, you go upwards, it will feel to someone else, especially around the sensitive topic, as unconscious bias, because sometimes people do feel like you're accusing them of something. I try to understand it why certain decisions were made, and see if there is a pattern. And when I see there is a pattern and the same type of excuses, then that gets highlighted. So I document everything, probably too much, but I document a lot so that I can really match and see if there are trends of bias happening.
Yeah, no, that's very important, I would say. Also in that context, and also being self-aware and being able to read between the lines. I think this is a crucial skill, isn't it?
It is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How important is it for you, right, to have the right environment? So, right, you can define what right means, right? But yeah, how important is it to have the right environment around you in order to deal with on the one hand with biases, but also on the other hand to progress as a human being?
It's critical. It's everything. And before I would, I'm working for a company because I need to make a living, and then I'll move because it's the right time for personal reasons. As you progress through your career and you get to where you want to be, you realise and working in so many different organisations, because I was a contractor for a time, you then realise, okay, where do I want to settle? Where do I want to feel, this company is home? And it's crucial as a contractor. You go in, you get the job done, you have an end date, you're out again. You see certain things that work, certain things that don't work. You see those different cultures, and then you can make a decision whether you want to convert or you want to stay. Convert or if you want to leave. When you are finding home, I call it home, when you have no end date and you're happy to get up every morning and go to work and it doesn't feel like work, is the culture and values. And being at ServiceNow, I've never seen, I know other companies do it and I'm aware of it now, but prior to ServiceNow, I had no idea that employee belonging groups existed. And I have worked for corporate companies, and maybe some of them, I'm hearing some of them had them, but I had no idea that they were there. So that really just shows, from a company standpoint, the investment that they have to make sure that everyone feels like they belong. And that's why I'm here at ServiceNow today. That was actually the reason why I joined the business, because of that.
Yeah. I'm getting goosebumps. So thank you for that.
I was referred. I was referred in, and I was like, oh, well, I'm not actually looking for a role right now. I'm actually quite comfortable where I am. And then the EBG groups were mentioned, and I was like, sorry, what? What do you have at ServiceNow? I said, is that a thing? And I was told, yeah, just have a conversation with us. And I said, okay. All right. And I was completely sold. I think it's absolutely phenomenal, because you do your day job, and we all can do our day jobs in many different companies, but it's what makes ServiceNow different. And yeah, and I'm still buzzing a year and a half later with the different things and different events and socials and all sorts of different activities that go on for all the different groups. It's just phenomenal. And I'm learning so much just because we have this here.
Yeah. And I hope everyone who's within their current company can smile like you're smiling now. So I wish everyone the same smile, because I think this shouldn't be rare, right? This should be the normal. And I hope you have the environment, and if not, work on it, that you will have it in your current one, or if it's time to move on, then let's move on, right? So I'm going to quote you now from your LinkedIn profile, right? An ambassador for driving diversity hires across the business and working on TA projects. A business advocate for local schools to learn about careers in STEM. So why did you choose this statement to write on your LinkedIn profile?
Because I love to see all different diverse groups coming through the door. There's not, and I know, sometimes we're limited on opportunities. So I like to blow that door wide open to provide opportunities. And something that I did, being here, was thinking outside of the box. Sometimes we go, well, how do we find more Black people? Where do we find them? Or where do we find other ethnic groups? Sometimes we can't, when we're doing our, searching for candidates, and you'll see on LinkedIn, it generally, you might find one person that's diverse out of 25, for instance. And you can't always assume, if you're looking at CVs, based on names either. So where do people hang out? And that's what I've said to my team. What interests? Sometimes you do have different groups that have different types of interests. So get to know what do Black people do? We do everything, of course, but what are maybe certain types of music, or where do women hang out? Do more women do yoga than men? So, certain keywords that you'll put in to find certain groups of people in your searches that you can add when you're headhunting for candidates, because it's in their hobbies and interests, and those things will flag up. So it's just thinking differently, thinking outside of the box to find where certain groups of people are, in order to diversify your pools. There's so many different things that I can say on that matter, but I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, all good. And maybe let's dig a little bit deeper, right? So beneath your skin, what personal connections are attached to this statement?
So also with STEM, I didn't, because my punchline is quite lengthy. I love working with the youth. I love inspiring them in all, and I do work with a lot of kids as well through church. And I love to see when I go into schools, and I work with a charity called Learning to Work, and we give them tasks to do, and they go into groups, and you can see how their little brains are working and coming up with new innovative things. And Generation Z, honestly, they are a generation that are making changes with technology. And we weren't thinking like that when we were, 13, 14, 15 with technology. So I just love to inspire that age group and build future leaders, and especially with the minority groups. Sometimes they don't necessarily have, maybe they might not have a mentor, or they don't get certain opportunities to learn about the world of business. So that's why I like to go into those into the schools and have those conversations.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting, and it combines or adding on the topic we already had, right? Intrinsic motivation.
Yes, absolutely. And it's great when they can see someone of colour in roles that are there to inspire them in a global tech company like ServiceNow. So it's great to see a range of different ethnic groups that go in to talk to them and inspire. So, yeah.
Yeah. What would you say then? How important is it to have a role model?
I think it's very important. It is very important to have someone to look up to. And sometimes you have role models that you don't know. It could be celebrities, it could be business people, it could be people in your families. So it could be anybody. So the more the different types of people that your children get inspired to, or even young adult, anyone, the more people you are exposed to, and you see their stories and their success journeys, you can be inspired. And even joining and following certain people on LinkedIn, you can seriously watch their journeys and go, oh, how did you end up from there to there? And I say that to a lot of youth as well, when they're looking for new opportunities. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? If you're choosing this role, go and throw that title in on LinkedIn and see, and just have a look at where people have gone, because sometimes people do sideways steps that you didn't even think about, and just broaden your mind to see what what you can do with certain roles that you go into.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit off topic, and a much more kind of, compared to our topic today, a more simpler topic, right? But there will be also an episode coming up where I will talk to someone who studied politics and is now within software sales. So it just adds on what you just mentioned, right? Just to see what can be possible. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And you also already mentioned it, kind of, right? But maybe let's summarize it for a second. What does diversity hires mean to you?
So diversity hires it is all our EBG groups, to be honest. So it's Black people, Asian people, at the accessibility teams, it's people with disabilities or neurodiversity. It's the Pride, so the LGBTQ community. It's different religions as well. Am I forgetting some? I think I am. But anyone, families. I mean, even people with families. If you're a mother, can be discriminated against sometimes in the workplace. Are they going to go on maternity leave? Are they going to stay? Or do they have to leave to pick up their children if we hire someone that has young children? So I think anyone can be, lots of different groups can be discriminated against, but it's making sure that everyone has a foot at the table and are seen for the skills that they can bring to an organisation.
Now, what does your engagement look like, being a business advocate for local schools to learn about careers in STEM? Maybe let's start with, what is STEM?
So science, technology, engineering and maths. So it is quite broad. So what do I'm sorry, what was the question again with STEM?
Oh, good. So what does your engagement look like, being a business advocate for local schools to learn about careers in STEM?
My engagement. So when I go and when I speak to children about STEM, I always talk about the fact that you don't have to be technical to work, to be in that field. Even if you're in construction, which is outside of STEM, or engineering roles in the construction space, for instance, it can be quite male dominant. And it is just talking to them about the different roles that make a business work. So do I work for in a STEM role? I do, technically. I'm not a technical person, but I'm working in a technical company. So it's thinking about how a business works, and looking at the different functions, and you get to learn and understand what the company does, without having to be a coder or an expert in JavaScript or something like that. You can actually be in sales, but really understand technology, but not be overly technical. So, or marketing and things like that. So some people do, young people do think that to work in STEM, they have to be overly technical. And it's really having those conversations from an early age, from that GCSE time, to say, these are the different things that you can do. And because we've been in our careers for such a long time, we think there's certain things where I'm thinking, oh, it's obvious. When I go, there's certain times when I'm going to go in and talk to a school, and I'm having a conversation with one of the schools to say, what do you want me to talk about? I can't quite, I'm trying to think of something. And they will say, well, just talk about interviewing. How do you dress to an interview? How do you conduct yourself? And I'm going, oh yeah, I've done that. That's been there, done that. That's something that I wouldn't even think about again. That's just a natural thing. You know how to show up. But these, some of these children, they're starting off, so they don't know how to show up. So you really have to go back to basics, and then also educate them on. I always go about the wheel of business and all the different functions. I love a flip chart and drawing all the different functions and saying, here are the different careers, and there are so many careers in each bubble that fall under the STEM umbrella, and you just see the light bulbs going off, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, and to be honest, I really like the different, or to take the different point of view regarding STEM, right? And because I think it provides accessibility to the topic, and also breaking biases, right? Because I think I didn't thought of that, to be honest, and I really like this different point of view.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I have come across a few people in their early 20s, and at dinner parties and things like that. And it's funny when I speak to some females, and they say, "Oh, I really had an interest in computer science, and I did the course, and my teacher told me that there's not many women in the course, so that's going to go on to university and things like that," and have put them off from pursuing their IT roles with conversations like that. And I couldn't believe it still happens today. So what I always say to to kids, to young people, when you have an idea of where you want to go, do not let anyone deter you off that journey. If they're not being helpful, then don't listen to it, and you continue to strive, and you break down those goals. How am I going to do it? And break it down into steps, and you get there.
Yeah, and it all comes back to what you mentioned in the beginning, and dedication all over again. No, that's a really great shout out. Yeah, thank you for that, Danielle. Maybe let's take another quote from your LinkedIn profile, right? So, EMEA recruiting lead 2023 for our Black at Now global team to work on direct initiatives in the Black community. First, congratulations, for being the lead. What is your role about? Let's demystify that.
Yeah, so of course that's my second role. I have two roles. So that role, which is a part of the employee belonging group, is how do we attract more people? It's a recruiting lead role. So how do we attract more people to the organisation? And that's what came out of the conversations that I had, and we had sessions earlier on. So this year. Yeah, earlier on this year, with sessions of where do we find people? So it's not just Black people, where do we find all types of people? So I thought, okay, if people always say that to me, where do I find you? Okay, well, and I don't know if this is politically correct, but I know that I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and I know there are a lot of London churches where there is a lot of Black Seventh-day Adventists. So I'll pop that in on my search on LinkedIn, and with my titles that I'm looking for, and up pops a whole range of Black candidates. So it's just playing around with words. Are all Black? I'm not saying that all Black people are Christians. I'm not saying that at all. But when you find that there's large groups of communities, finding out and learning about what different communities do and where there are bunches, people, and understanding their interests, then sometimes you can think about going into those areas. And it's the same, like I said, with women. What are female sports? Netball, and I'm not being biased because some men do play netball, but you have to look at the majority in numbers. Where could I have a better hit rate? So putting in netball as a hobby, you might get some netball teachers, male teachers popping up, but it's a very female dominated sport. So you are likely going to have a high hit rate on finding women, people with that interest. But then anyone that's recruiters will know when you're sourcing, you have lots of keywords that you are putting into your searches, and by adding maybe a hobby or a certain group can really help to increase your diverse results.
Yeah. So I think every recruiter and sourcer who's watching or listening to this totally agrees with you. Of course they know. Of course they are the best. Why did you apply for this role?
I applied because I wanted to make a difference, and I love to open doors for my community as well as others. Of course, I want to see more Black people in leadership roles, more Black people in organizations in general. I often find that I am the only Black person on the team, or I can kind of point out a handful of people that look like me. So, and I know sometimes we're just limited by choices, not all the time, but we are we don't get as many opportunities. So being in this role and being able to select diverse candidates from my group and from others, that's something I'm passionate about, and because it's a passion of mine, I'm going to do it. That's why.
Yeah. Are you still enjoying it?
I am. Absolutely. And I've had great successes here as well. But I like to also say that I'm an advocate for all the different groups. And I'm, for everyone. And I like fairness. I like to learn about different groups and promote and push them. But going back to being the recruiting lead, it really is to make a difference to our community, turn up at different events and show that, we are present. I am here as well, working for a big global tech company in a really good position. And I'm here that, if I can inspire anyone as well, I will do so. So it's making that change and putting on events for internally for our company to learn more about the different cultures in the Black community.
Yeah. Let's go to a, I would say difficult or sensitive or sensible question, right? In your current role as a recruiting lead, in the context of the employee resource groups and so on, right? What are you measured against?
So we're not measured. However, we do have objectives that we want to see. So I'm in this role, I believe 18 to 24 months. What do you want to make it? What do you want to change? How would you like to make a difference? So at the beginning, when you start your role, you work with your team and you list out all the different objectives. You narrow that down and have goals of what you want to do to make an impact in the community. So that's what we do.
Yeah. You already mentioned it kind of, right? But what is the purpose of your role?
So the purpose of the role is to make a change, is to increase Black people in our organisation, and also look after the employees that are in the organisation as well, whether it's professional development, learning how to network, how to grow their careers, all of those different things. So it's not just externally and let's hire more Black people, but it's what are we doing for our Black people when they are here? How do we retain them so that this is their employer of choice, that they don't want to leave? Giving them a voice with different ideas and things like that. So that's what I look at. So increasing referrals, for instance, there is a newsletter that I will be sending out to the Black at Now community that we have here, so they see it more. Refer. It's not all about TA finding candidates, but refer people for roles, but to give them more visibility and say, here you go, here are the roles, please do refer. Let's increase our numbers here.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. And maybe to, if you allow me to put it in different words, right? I think now you have also your HR component to your job, I would say. So not just hiring, right, but also retention, and HR plays a big role in that, right? Got it. Why do you think? Last question regarding that. Why do you think this role has its justification in the business world?
Why does it have justification in the business world?
Yes.
Yeah. I think we have a great CEO, Bill McDermott. He is phenomenal. And I from what I see, he wants change for all groups, and he pushes that message down. I've seen him in action on at certain meetings as well. So it's very, very important. And I think it's very key when you have your leaders promoting diversity, because it can't work the other way around. It has to come from the top. And I think it's just so important to have, because it does encourage other Black people to see, and anyone from any of the groups, that we are doing something. We are trying to make a difference. We are being inclusive, and we are understanding who you are, and we're getting to learn who everybody is, from the different events that we put on for the business, as well, for everyone to join, to learn about different things, to learn about biases, to hear directly from people in different groups about their experiences, and not always negatives, but also positives. And we've had great celebrations at Black History Month, where we've had caterers come in our offices in the UK, and just had a celebration and games with different, learning about different Black celebrities and historians. And that's open for everyone. And the same in the Asian community. They're doing great things as well. And all the different groups are able to put on something to showcase who we are, where we've come from, and some of the challenges we have, but also a lot about the successes as well. So it's just learning. It's great to know who we all are, and the more we do that, the better we work as a team.
Yeah, nothing to add. That was a great shout out, because at the end, it's about the people, right, and who we are. That's the culture of every company, and nothing to add. Another question, we are almost at the end, right? But self-awareness, self-reflection, mental health, recharging, and purpose. Buzzword bingo or what?
So Buzz, I didn't catch that.
Buzzword bingo or what?
Oh, recharging. I think that's probably something I'm not so good at. And everybody tells me is take a break. I am go. And sometimes for your own mental health, you need to pause. You can't solve every issue and every problem in a day, in a month sometimes. And it is taking that time out just to recharge. And I'm learning that more and more and more. And taking that advice. I'm great at giving the advice, but sometimes not taking it. So that's a big buzzword for me. And I'm trying to learn to do that more and more. And those that know me, please help me to do it. I'm going to start saying no. I'm not doing it.
We're going to hold you accountable. So I promise that.
I will say no. Because I'm always the yes person.
Oh, man. No, perfect. Danielle, thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed our conversation. Very important topic. It was great to get your point of view. Maybe over to you for the last words.
Thank you. No, it's been an honour to be here, and I'm very grateful that you've asked me to be one of your guest speakers. Hopefully it will inspire someone out there, and just to showcase a success story, because I do really see that, and I'm very grateful to be at ServiceNow as well, and having the platform to be my authentic self. So yes.
Thank you, Danielle, and hope to see you soon, hopefully in Munich, and the coffee is on me.
Lovely. I'll hold you to that, Christian.
Perfect. Then thank you and take care.
Take care.